Internet! Hello, you lovelies, and welcome to Deadpool and Wolverine with full spoilers. Let's have a full spoiler conversation. Now, if you are new to this page, I do comic book news and comic book reviews, as well as movie news and movie reviews, and I restarted my solo page for Deadpool and Wolverine, and over 2,000 of you have subscribed since that non-spoiler review, and I am so appreciative. Hopefully you're back in here, because that non-spoiler review was one of the hardest reviews I have ever had to do, because there's so much spoilery goodness I want to talk about. Now, this is going to be full spoilers, so you haven't seen the movie, please get out of here. I honestly, I know some people don't mind spoilers. Some people seek out spoilers. I don't want to be the one that tells you, because so much of this movie was the joy of experiencing these surprises, and more surprises in movies are rare in 2024. The internet loves taking that joy away, so please see the movie first and come back to me. Also, those 2,000, keep subscribing. Thank you guys so much. I want to hit 30K, hopefully this weekend with Deadpool and San Diego Comic-Con, so thank you for being here. I've given you guys all the excuses I can to leave. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go right now, and if you have, let's talk Deadpool and Wolverine with full frickin' spoilers. All right, so my big overall thought, I'm going to do overall thoughts, then I'm going to get into the first, second, and third act. I wrote some notes down so I remember all the things. I saw this a couple days ago, and I did my non-spoiler before I'd heard anything. Since then, I've heard people complaining about it being too funny, which is an odd thing for a comedy, it being not with the weight they wanted in the humor, and that is a more of a fair judgment-ish. I do think this movie is a cumulative experience. I think this is effectively a graphic novel. Comic books are, individual weekly comics, and then there's graphic novels that collect a story. This feels like a full-on comic book graphic novel to me. And I think a lot of good comic book movies, great comic book movies, feel like you're adapting the comic book characters to fit into a movie format. This, to me, feels like adapting a comic book itself into the movie format. This is like the act of reading a comic. It's much closer to Spider-Verse or the action sequence in Civil War, and I talked about that in my non-spoiler. This is the culmination of 24 years of things. The weight that maybe people weren't feeling is the association to these characters. And that's why I'm describing it like a graphic novel, because I think if you've read a comic for long enough, you're really invested in these characters, so sometimes the graphic novel doesn't retell everything or give you the thing you want to feel specifically there. It's telling the story it needs to tell in that contained spot. So I think maybe that's some of the issue with the film, because if you don't like comic movies, you're not going to start liking them with this very comic book movie. That's all the things I can say. It feels weird to say spoilers. We're going to dive into spoilers. I personally could not believe some of the things I saw on screen. To see Gambit in a way I never thought I would, played by someone who had fought to play this character while still being cheeky about his play of this character, diving into the accent, playing with all those elements. That level of meta is, I think, what makes this movie sing, but also keeps it at arm's length for other people. And I think there's an example for each of the characters there. I think with Gambit, that is a inside baseball joke. If you didn't know Channing Tatum was cast and was on the Hall H stage, all those things, it might not have been as impactful. And that's what I'm discussing, is the impact of these moments for comic fans. The Wesley Snipes appearance, I made sounds not heard in nature. The excitement I felt, the joy, the confused glee. Also, by the way, I've had this up on my wall for weeks, and I was afraid to take it down before the non-spoiler review, because I was afraid its absence would alert people that something was afoot. So it was really funny, because I was like, there's no way Blade's gonna be in this. And the jab at Wesley hating Ryan Reynolds and then making it about Blade hating Deadpool was so pitch perfect. But again, inside baseball. Elektra, the awareness of Daredevil existing and her being like, it's not a big deal because of her divorce from Ben Affleck. Deeply inside baseball. But that is literally Deadpool. It's meta to a level that is so self-aware of not just his universe, but our universe. And I feel like a lot of people didn't want that level of connection, or they didn't care enough. And I personally, the reason it's so big for me is I was exactly there for all of that. Now, I think a lot of people enjoyed the jabs at Marvel. This was effectively both a love letter and a diss track, which is a very hard balance to do. I think that might have been jarring for a lot of people. I wanted to open this up with the investment in just those three examples are things that I think added weight beyond the comedy. A lot of people in my nerd commentary space said it was just funny and they didn't feel the weight they wanted to, and I was flabbergasted by that, because yes, it's hilarious. I literally laughed over lots of other beats. I was incredulous at the things this accomplished comedically, but I also had lots of weight with the arc of Deadpool. Each Deadpool film has a different goal, a different arc for Deadpool, right? The first one is to me, my interpretation of the first film is about him needing to feel loved and to know someone could love him, not feeling like he's lost when cancer ravages him, and then the whole change of the character, feeling wanted. That's huge. The second one is about feeling like he belongs, feeling like there are other people that care about him, feeling like he's a hero, feeling these things, overcoming loss. This one to me, and they say the plot, but it's about mattering. It's about leaving an impact. It's about being selfless. The first, being good enough for you. The second, being good enough for others. And the third, being good without it being about you. And that to me was hugely impactful. I love that. What do you do that matters? How do you matter? And the self-sacrifice that both of our characters went through show that. And I think that's hugely impactful. So I think a lot of the things that detracted some people were the lack of impact with those moments that could just read comedically, and it feeling very much like a graphic novel, I think was hugely impactful to us nerds in a good way, and to people that don't like comic movies in possibly a bad way. Now, I do think each of these acts had one insanely comic moment that each of them I didn't think I'd ever see on screen. The first of which, the first act, the X-Men insanity of what I wanted from Multiverse of Madness, but with characters we actually know and care about. I think that was the difference. I cannot believe we got not only an Age of Apocalypse X-Men moment with the stub, like we actually had the brick wall, the graffiti, the stub. We got an Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. We also got Cavill, or however he was called, Henry Cavill's Wolverine. The dude is so jacked, he actually looked like he was the right proportions. He's so massive, he looked like he was the right ratio of a John Byrne drawing because he's so big. We got the John Byrne suit with that little glimpse of Hulk, which again, I cannot believe that exists. We got the Uncanny X-Men 251 cover, that iconic, one of the most iconic covers in comic books, with the imagery in a movie, insane. We got Patch. That level of multiverse is what I always dreamed of. Those are some of, if not the most iconic Wolverines of all time, played by Hugh Jackman, and a little cameo by Henry Cavill, just to give us, like, we care about your comic lore. So in the first act, getting that, absolutely insane. Like, I want to give full credit to that being so comic-y, and maybe that being another thing that was for us. And then going from that into a montage of basically the TVA's own trials and tribulations multiverse, like that felt like a comic book. It felt like flipping pages. And the thing that felt the most like flipping pages to me was by the time we got into the Mad Max world and we were meeting so many characters, it literally felt like panels to me. And that was so beautiful. The first act, I want to stick to my big thoughts. First act, having that multiversal assembly was surreal. Second act, the big thing that felt absolutely insane was, as I just discussed, assembling this new team and it being Gambit making jokes existentially about not existing and something never coming to fruition. All of that working for the plot, but also working for some closure for Channing Tatum. That was genius. Blade being embittered that his franchise ended poorly, having hate for Ryan Reynolds / Deadpool / Hannibal King. Genius and totally worked for the plot. Again, felt very much like a comic. Elektra being so aware that her character wasn't as beloved as the character should have been, being, someone that wanted to be on her own and handle her own stuff like Elektra does. All of that worked in a meta way because it's Elektra, but it's also Jennifer Garner, and it's also referencing our world. Absolutely genius. And my biggest issue is that scene was like a week before the movie came out, they put out another trailer with X-23, and they set up X-23 to be the big reveal in that scene, who's the fourth member, and then we're like, well, is the only one you showed in the trailer? Like, that was such, to me, a misstep. I didn't even watch the trailer, but I saw it all over the internet. So that was one of the things that was a bummer, and why I opened this video so strongly with, please do not go in having seen anything, because that moment would have been so much more impactful. When you saw her ankle picking them up in the van, I was like, oh, it's X-23, but I wish I hadn't known it was X-23, because then the reveal, less weight, but I digress. Third act, the big comic book moment that I can't believe exists, the Deadpool core. We got a full-on Deadpool core, and they were actually bad guys. And that also allowed a 1-2 punch of a third act big villain moment. So not only did we get the fight to save all of reality and the sacrifice by friendship and the power of friendship and holding hands and all that beautiful comic book imagery with a very devastatingly powerful Cassandra Nova. I'm going to talk about her next. But the Deadpool core being so silly and so self-aware. Deadpool's had so many ridiculous comics. Deadpool has gone through so many different things that are absurd. To see Zenpool, to see Deadpool 2099, to see these characters that work to different levels of actual success, to see this giant cowboy Deadpool as voiced by Matthew McConaughey, Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool, Dogpool is a whole video. But like to have all of those things work for the most part was funny because the characters work for the most part. And to have them be a toss away hallway fight effectively. The Guardians 3 fight, the Daredevil fight, the oneer, that's a hallway. But have it be Wolverine happily, finally cowled up, taking out Deadpool's. Because Deadpool wasn't a good guy. Deadpool, the mercenary, was bad in comics for 20 years. He was this obscure character that was trying to be on the right side of things. He was a mercenary for a long time. He was a bad guy. He's a full-on bad guy in Ultimate. But he was a bad guy for a lot of his life, so I like that other than R. Wade Wilson, our anchor, the Deadpools were largely pieces of crap. And I love that the redemption was just Peter Pool, and how the power of friendship not only saved us, but it also saved Deadpool having to fight the regenerating Deadpools again. Power of friendship, the power of mattering, the power of being selfless. The theme of the movie was reflected in each of those fights. I love that. The fight itself ended because of Peter Pool. Deadpool mattering is what he always wanted, but then showing Wolverine not only was he the best, because he was never the right guy, but having him have friends and him mattering through X-23, all of that was a beautiful way to get the message across while also being so insanely comic booky. So each of those 3 acts, I thought that was a really impactful, important moment that felt very much like a chapter in a graphic novel, but also really, really sold beyond just the comedy for me. Now, the comedy I thought was so meta, a lot of it probably worked for me more than other people. I personally really liked Nice Pool. I thought the soft proposal reference, as well as Van Milder, all that stuff was hilarious to me, but I'm also a giant Ryan Reynolds fan. So self-deprecating humor at the cost of your own career, very funny to me. The jokes being so inside baseball that at points when they were making fun of Marvel that felt like only us that watch videos about Marvel would get it, I personally love that. And then the broader meta jokes like Furiosa, the carrying around Sabretooth's head, the reference even of I'm gonna cut your damn head off, finally landing 20 years later with cutting his damn head off. The last beat in the film where Wolverine literally calls, you're God's perfect idiot, aren't you? Is literally how Ryan Reynolds is credited in the first Deadpool film. All these little details, I think, absolutely elevated this film to one of the best comic book comedies. And I think that that's what this needs to be seen as, is if you're looking at movies in other genres, space opera, Guardians, heist, Ant-Man, tech billionaire, action adventure, obviously Iron Man, espionage, thriller, Winter Soldier, depending on what you like, that's going to be your comic book movie. This was meant to be a comedy, and I'm not sure why that isn't registering, or it's registering as a negative. Comedy, yes, but comedy works when there's heart. Deadpool needs to have survived the trauma of losing his friends and family and the risk of losing that. The cancer is why he makes jokes, the defense mechanism, all of that's still there to me. So it's not like the comedy isn't with weight to me. So I personally thought if your genre is comedy, if you want a buddy road trip comedy, this is your movie. So I'm not sure why it's been seen as lowly as the Metacritic score, but for me, those are the things that really worked with all the spoilers intact. And again, I'm going to make a full Easter egg video because, for example, there's 2 fights, right? There's the outside fight in the Goliath-ridden Mad Max End of Time. And that fight is very big and it's very offensive. Both of them are fighting big offense. Later, there's the van fight. Both of them are in close quarters. So it's a more contained fight. Defense and offense are going down. But I like that one fight was broad, like a comic. One fight was contained, like a different style of comic fight. I love that Wolverine, this could have been called Deadpool versus Wolverine. I love that you always have to fight first before the team up. And they did 2 insane throwdown fights. But fun fact, that first fight, the full outside in the desert insanity, that literally used comics as storyboards. There are 2 comics from Rob Liefeld, which I put in my what to read before video, that they used as literal storyboards. Check out Wolverine, I think it's 154 and 155. Frames from that are the fight they actually do. Second thing they used was this beautiful Adam Kubert cover that literally has Deadpool and Wolverine fighting, and that overhead shot that they used the frame of. And then the third thing they used was there's this like punch, punch, dodge, dodge, haymaker, dodge, punch, like combo. It is literally the Flash Thompson fighting Spider-Man combo from the first Spider-Man. So that opening fight, as layered as it is, already has 3 specific comic book references. And this movie is full of stuff like that. So I'll be doing an Easter egg video because that's much more than just a spoiler review. I did want to defend this movie. The reason it's a 9.2 to me and maybe not for others is because not everyone likes this medium of comic books. Not everyone wants to pick up a graphic novel. Not everyone appreciates meta humor. Not everyone likes this style. But if you do, this movie is absolutely for you. Now, I'm going to check out my notes. First movie, acceptance, self, believing in others. Second movie, belonging and friendship. Third movie, mattering and selflessness, not about you. Love that that landed. For this, first act, multiverse of madness moment. Second, page-turning team-up moment. Third, man versus self variance and Big Bad. Absolutely insane. Oh, Big Bad, I got to talk about. Okay, so that's why I take note. I loved Cassandra Nova because not only did you understand that she was tossed aside in the comic books, and I might make a Cassandra Nova video. If you guys would like a Cassandra Nova video, leave a comment. In the comics, she is literally killed in the womb, and then she becomes a parasitic concept that forms a body through sheer force of like psionic energy. Here, she's jettisoned to the nothingness of the end of time. And I love that those parallels work without having to go into the insanity that is comic books, because it worked better in this medium to do it that way, where she was just offsides. But that visual of her manipulating by literally having to touch brains, like, I love how violent that makes psychic powers. The idea of Xavier being able to manipulate your mind, since you don't see it, it feels violating, but it's visually so violating and so much more villainous with Cassandra Nova. And I loved how that was done. I love that she kind of like unsheathes, and once you see her whole body, it very much looks like that Frank Quietly art, where it's like very intense, like all of her angles are so cool. And I thought she played this very well. I clearly saw a lot of McAvoy and a little bit of Stewart in her performance. It looked like she was following in her brother's footsteps as far as how she was portraying Cassandra Nova. I liked her motivation. I liked the idea that why would she care about anything? And she's the ruler of this place. She would destroy everything. I thought, as far as villains that wanted to end it all, which she does in the comic books, she, by the way, is responsible for Genosha. The whole thing that X-Men 97 just did, she's responsible for that Sentinel attack. For me, she absolutely worked because I bought her motivation. I love the performance. I love the intensity. I love the R-rated nature of this villain. I didn't think Paradox comedy worked for me as well. That was one of the comedy elements that didn't totally sing for me, but she made up for it, because to me, Paradox was a guy that wasn't good at his job, that had gotten further than he expected, and then was kind of bumbling through it. So I didn't want him to be too capable, because he clearly wasn't as smart as he thought he was, whereas she was so capable, so powerful, so manipulative, so wise, so violent, and willing to do anything. Really liked Cassandra Nova in this quite a bit. Let's go beat by beat. Opening credits, they literally preserve canon in the opening credits by having Wade fight with the body of Wolverine. It shows how much of a fan he is, how much he always wanted that team up. Shows us we're not going to mess with Logan canon. Show us the entire multiverse saga. Throw in some pop culture by using NSYNC. Show some amazing violent choreography. This is literally Deadpool in one opening sequence. And I talked about this in my non-spoiler. That opening sequence in the first Deadpool was the moment I knew Deadpool was on screen. When I knew they had nailed this character, was the God's perfect idiot, the British villain, and then they kept the British villain. He even says, I've already got a British villain. They reference in this film even the opening credits of the first, and then the opening credits of this one, mirroring that one, and then also making all of the canon adjustments, all of the continuity matter, showing the incredible directing style, fighting with a literal adamantium skeleton. There's nothing more depraved and a whiff of necrophilia than this decision. And I thought that was the perfect way to open the film. Also having it be a dance number. I love the NSYNC choreography. It's the most millennial movie I think I've ever seen. That was genius, and I really love those opening credits. And it also shows how much of a fan after the Avengers Please Recruit Me is. He wants to be recruited because he wants the title. He doesn't want to help people. He wants to be needed. He doesn't seek it for the right reasons. And I love that there's a sense of, I'm a fan of the Avengers. I'm not yet an Avenger. And I love that he's a fan of Wolverine. He doesn't obviously have earned that friendship with Wolverine. The team up comes later, and I love that he literally uses his body. There's so much metaphor in using people. He's not a good friend to people. He becomes a good friend to people. He literally uses Wolverine and then becomes friends with Wolverine. He uses his body, and I think that level of manipulation is a really clever opening sequence. The TVA stuff worked for me because it was a good way to set the world. I do think if you haven't seen Loki, it'd be a little confusing, but I also think it was necessary to grow the world. I think the humor there worked. I like the bringing in the suit. I love the guy calling HR, is your wife in HR? All that humor really worked for me. The Chris Evans element, I'm not even kidding, I wrote that scene as dialogue in a conversation 7 years ago. Seeing it come to life was one of the most surreal things of my life. I literally have 2 different instances where I talked to Rob Liefeld about what I wanted from a Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. And I'm so glad they actually didn't go that way here, because this really works for me a bit better. Where basically I said, like, I want them to have Chris Evans come in, have Deadpool think it's Captain America, because in the comic books, he literally kills Coulson because he loves Captain America so much he's just taken orders. Giant adorer of Cap. That's why the little salute in the TVA was amazing. But have Chris Evans come in, have his costume tattered, have him like hidden, literally describing Old Man Logan, but doing all this, and then have him do a flame on and fly off into the sky. And they did it beat for beat as I described, and I was overjoyed. I don't want residuals. I just want to know that I helped make a moment that, I mean, great minds think alike. Like, again, I'm not saying they took my idea. but it feels so good to be seeing a movie that people see these characters so much like I do that I described a scene that then came to fruition later. So that was quite the moment. I loved Boston/New York Johnny Storm. I love foul-mouthed Chris Evans. I love that Chris Evans gets to be more like his Boston side here in movies like this. I really liked the Old Man Logan blending with Eliath. I love the Ant-Man use straight out of the comic. That was a beautiful Easter egg tying into the comic books. I thought instead of doing Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, making it an Eliath story, the end of time, all that, it absolutely keeps Deadpool more benevolent because it's easy to make him into the mercenary and kind of fall on the anti-hero side. The Fox team blew my mind. I could not believe that existed. I really love that moment with X-23 and Logan by the fire. I thought that mirrored a lot of stuff from Logan, and seeing that she is the same character and she matured and this Wolverine hasn't yet, and then the moment his leg comes out of the back of the van and there's just like that oorah moment, absolutely incredible. Seeing Gambit fight, life moment. Seeing those cards come out, seeing Blade throwing down Wesley Snipes at like 60, still incredible. The line where Blade says the only one ever was, I cannot believe some of the jabs that were taken at Marvel's expense that they got away with, and I love Marvel for letting them. I love that they called out basically Wolverine, welcome to the MCU, Wolverine, you're joining at a low point. I personally think Marvel's had absolute higher points. I love that everyone that has been upset at Marvel got their little feeling of comeuppance. I personally don't think there's been as many missteps as others, but I really like that they use this movie to, like I said, be a diss track and a love letter. And that Blade jab, considering this came out the week of Comic-Con, and as of now, we still have no Blade updates, I feel what a beautiful moment for Wesley Snipes and for us as an audience. And then to have Deadpool just like, ugh. I really, really liked the visuals with the time warping and all those things. I really liked Cassandra Nova and all of those manipulations. Deadpool core, hallway fight, Peter Pool saves the day, Wolverine joining the family, the two masks. Again, best bubs. This movie's about friendship. This movie's about mattering to others. This movie's about so many things I care about. And this movie was funny as fuck. Hope you guys liked this review. This was everything to me. But I think it took 24 years of being invested in these characters for it to be as impactful to me. And I'm not judging anyone that didn't like it, but I think that it's made by fans for fans. And I think if you're not a fan, you might like it, but you won't love it like you've spent 24 years in this. So as someone who's spent 24 years in this Fox universe, I love that it was a love letter to Fox. As someone who spent 33 years reading comics, I love that it felt like a comic. And I really hope that people aren't dissuaded by people that aren't as invested in these worlds not liking it, because not everything is for everyone. I don't particularly like Bridgerton, but everyone loves it. I don't particularly like a lot of things that are huge to a lot of people. It's not my thing, and that's okay. It doesn't make it less. But I hope people are going in with an open mind, especially those that do love this stuff, because this stuff means a lot to a lot of people, including me. And this movie meant a lot to me because it clearly meant a lot to the people making it. And those people clearly do see the world like I do, whether it's referencing deep cuts or writing stuff that I'm like, that's exactly what I would have done, or making me surprised by connecting things that I never expected, or the meta layers. There's so many things that meant the world to me. So hope they meant the world to you too. Hope you like this review. If you want to see that Easter egg video, leave a comment below. If you want to see that Cassandra Nova video, leave a comment below. If you want to see anything else from me like this, hit that subscription bell and leave a like on your way out of here. So much love. Truly thank each and every one of you that has joined this page, especially in the last couple of weeks. It's been insane to see this page grow like this, and I really means the world. I never thought I'd do a solo YouTube page, so to have people receptive to it and to see it grow like this, thank you. I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Go see Deadpool and Wolverine again. Cannot wait to see it again with a big crowd, just like a regular movie crowd. I can't wait. All right, bye guys.